welcome to Seesar Gear. Today we are talking about the Rainbow Machine from Quaker devices. This tasty pedal takes little snippets of input signal and creates a delay, and then you can manipulate the trail of that delay, which is pretty great. The speciality of these pedals is that you can control the pitch, you can control feedback loops, it self-oscillates, sort of like I guess most delay pedals would self-oscillate, but this particular one has certain factors for shaping the sound of the delay trail that you can't get from other pedals that I've discovered, and you can adjust the pitch shifting of the delay trail to either cascade up or cascade down, which is why I have two, because then I can set one to each and mix them together. Now, it might be more prudent to set these up in parallel. At the moment, I've got them in series, but if you have them in parallel, you could probably separate the two. However, I do find that if you have them in series, you're able to create more interesting self-oscillations, which is something that I am promoting heavily. The point of this entire channel is how to make noise with your pedals. This is not a jangly guitar pop instructional. And like I said, there's nothing wrong with that kind of thing, but that's not what I do on this channel, right? So what I'm doing is showing you how you can take something that is probably meant to be pretty and gorgeous and lovely, and is pretty and gorgeous and lovely, but in that way that demented noise musicians like. So let's have a listen. I'm gonna turn on just one pedal, and we'll mess around a little bit. I'll give you a little insight on the controls and how to create some of the sounds. Then we'll add the second pedal in and see how they juxtapose with each other. And like I said, they'll double up on the feedback looping, so the self-oscillation can be pretty tasty and performative. So if you have two oscillators, you have a pitch control, and the pitch control is sort of controlling the sampling pitch of the input signal. And then you have a latch, which is the length of the input signal snippet. And then you have what they call the magic, which is the feedback looping and distortion of that snippet. And then you have a general EQ, just a guitar tone type of control. So let's make some noises. And let's stop right here and let's get to the crux of this, because this tasty knob is our go-to. The pitch control, when it is at 12 or lower, meaning you've turned it anti-clockwise or counterclockwise, and you are getting a pitch that descends. So there's half of the goodies, but if you turn it clockwise, or past the 12 o'clock mark to 1 to 3 or something, you get upward rising cascades. So if you have two of these tasty buds, before we move to that, let's stick with one and see if we can get one to self-oscillate, which it should do. Maybe not, though. Maybe it takes two to self-oscillate. So yeah, I think maybe that was close to it, but that wasn't really self-oscillation. That was me returning to the input. Let's see what we can do by adding in the second one. We've got some sort of truncated, weird sound, and I see what's going on. I've got a little bit of tracking and a very little bit of magic. And the pitch is descending. Let's add some of the first one back in. You can't see it, but I'm smiling over here. Sorry, I got lost in my own entertainment. The point, I'm going to turn these off before they start doing it again. The point being that one of them, okay, sounds pretty good. I feel like it needs a little bit of a boost. Now, some of that is probably this pickup, which actually is quite nice, but it's just not much of a signal, right? It's a little tiny little piece of metal going through a hollow thing that amplifies it enough for us to hear it acoustically, but it's not necessarily something that's powerful enough to drive this. Maybe I should put a preamp between this and this, which is effective to boost it, but still by itself, it's a tasty little underpinning that does make cool sounds. There's no problem with that. And like I said, if you've got a strong enough signal, you're going to get a little bit more out of it. But you put the two together and they multiply. They don't just send the same signal to each other. They actually oscillate to each other. Even though this is not necessarily getting information back from this, it's giving it information that is, an input signal that has oscillation on it already, so you're doubling up on what you're getting. Now, you won't get that if you use the pedals in parallel. In parallel, however, you will get a much more separated version of the pitch control. So there is a benefit. There is a benefit. I have a portal, which is a pedal that allows for switching between parallel circuits and series circuits, and that's where I've tested this. I can track it down, put a link to a portal in the description. I should do a video on it because it's quite useful in terms of utilitarianism and noise music. It's basically just a loop mapper, but it works great. But without it, you don't need that. You don't need something extra. You just need to chain them together, and chaining them together gives you this ability to create these awesome overlaid self-oscillations. Now, another thing too is this instrument. I picked this instrument because a sharp attack is useful for triggering the tonal sweeps on the Rainbow Machine. It is slightly intended for guitarists and their initial pluck of a string. That does not mean that they thought that was the only thing they were going to do with it. They're not stupid. They get it. But it is a guitar pedal. So you have to keep in mind that that's the initial input that's originally expected is a plucking of a string. Now, what you can do too is use something that doesn't have such a sharp attack. Now, this is obviously nothing but sharp attacks. It's got a vibratory decay that does produce a tone that doesn't just truncate and shut off. However, it's not very strong and it's not very long. So if you want something that's a bit more challenging with this, but also a bit more textural and gives you means to blend textures together, try something like Synthux Academy Audrey 2 or the Bad Dreams by Idiot Box Effects, something like that had a generator 11 from Dead Air. These kind of things have a consistent tone that can be used to manipulate these two oscillators and their interactions, but you won't get the initial decay sound. You won't get that attack. You'll only get blurred, washed trails, which is cool. I'm not saying anything bad about that. I'm just saying there's a major difference in how the electronics reacts to a signal that's input with a strong attack and a long delay versus a long attack or no attack and just a trail. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about getting one of these, or you've got one and you want a second one or anything like that. So that leaves me with my usual question, because I want to hear what other people have to say. Part of the reason that I have this channel is because I want to know what other people are doing. Good grief, I'm just this one person that has a bunch of gear, and I mess around with it to try and see what I can use for shows, and then I take it out, and I always find something on stage or something in a recording session where I hadn't thought of how to use it a particular way before, and go, I gotta remember that. And then I get home and sometimes I remember, sometimes I don't. So I'm looking for interactions with people to give me more ideas, and ideas that I can share with other people if you don't have the platform to do it. I also wanted to point out that, this is what I do with my compositions. I have graphic score compositions, and I invite people to play them and read through the graphic scores and interpret them with things like messing around with a double rainbow machine setup. That's something that's perfectly frameable as a parametered improvisation composition, and the language bits, the musical language from these devices is so varied and so rich and so textural in nature that it gives you so many opportunities to be expressive, especially with the type of stuff that I like to do, which is horror-based narrative soundscapes. That's my area of interest, and these guys fit that just nicely, like especially science fiction horror kind of things. Okay, I'll be quiet. I wanted to share this with you because I'm hoping somebody's got one or two and wants to give this a try. And that's it for this time. If you want to see more, you can always check out SeesarMusic.com/gear for more reviews. You can check out SeesarMusic.com/compositions if you want to check out what I do with graphic scores. You can check out my release page if you want to hear some of the music I've done. You can catch me on Instagram, either at Seesar_music, where I keep all the music and composition stuff, or Seesar_gear, where I talk about this kind of thing. And I hope you got something out of it. Thank you. Let me know what you think, and I will see you in the next one.